I'd love to ask you how these life experiences became a vocation in a sense of calling, of understanding the love of God.
Vocationally, something happened to me in college that felt like a moment of sheer divine grace. I
Hmm.
never did anything to earn it. I suddenly experienced that when I was like 20 years old, I would like talk to people about like the philosophical and theological questions that I had, and people would stop what they were doing and start listening.
Interesting.
And I was like, and I remember at a certain point thinking, like, what's happening?
Hmm.
Why is everyone stopping to hear what I'm talking about? Like, I'm just talking about what I'm thinking about. And I think I realized, and I hope this doesn't sound arrogant because I mean it in the opposite way. Like, oh, apparently I have an ability to articulate hard stuff in a way that
Hmm.
people can understand.
Hmm.
And I really love doing it. Like, and if I do it, and this is something I've spent my whole life learning this again and again, if you're willing to be vulnerable as a teacher, people will share their own vulnerabilities with you. And it's just very moving, right? Like, people come to me with the most amazingly difficult questions. I have no idea what to say to many of those questions, but it feels like such a blessing and a privilege that that's what I get to do all day, right? Like, I get to actually hear people struggle to make sense of their lives and figure out how to love their children better and how to be a responsible citizen. I mean, it's like amazing. And it really is true. Like, vulnerability from a teacher elicits vulnerability from a student. And if you're responsible and decent about it, amazing things can happen.
Absolutely. And that perhaps has something to do with love and the transformative power of love.
Well, it has everything to do with love because I think, there's like a twin thing that happens. I've never really thought about it this way until you just said that. But you are simultaneously sharing of yourself in the fullest way and also really making space for other people at the same time. I talk about this in the book in a way, right? Being present while making space as the key to relationship. And very often we think it's one or the other. And so we're present in a way that suffocates the other, or we make space that makes the other feel abandoned. But actually being present while making space is everything. That's parenting. I think that's marriage. It's friendship. It's certainly teaching. It's a paradox, I think, in a way, that the full heartedness, bringing your whole heart into a space,
Mhm.
actually is space making for others.
100%. And I'm sure we've all had moments where we haven't been in the place to create that space because of our lack of sleep or we're dysregulation from a bad day or whatever. But on our better days, we do have that capacity to not only hold our perspectives and feelings, but hold that of others.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I find interesting to just sort of observe around this is why often religious environments fail to create this kind of space for people. And one of the things that I feel like I learned, sort of going back to my own childhood, is that I had teachers who needed their own certainty to be so tight that if a student raised a question or an experience that unsettled them, they became a bulldozer. And, paradoxically, that makes the students, I think, for the most part, believe less,
Yep.
like, because you just, at the end of the day, you shut down to those teachers. One of the most painful experiences I ever had, it's such a powerful example of how not to teach, was that I had really not been talking to my teachers about my grief at all after my father died. And some of that is just the horrible things that we did and still probably do to boys, right? I remember saying to myself, Pam, it's so awful to think about. I remember saying, I am going to carry myself so that
Mm.
people are not even going to notice that anything's wrong. Right. I look back on that now and it breaks my heart. Like, I actually want to cry for that child who thought that was what he had to do. And then finally, one day I'm in a class And we're learning about this traditional Jewish blessing that one recites when one hears tragic news. And I finally, my armor broke, right? I raise my hand in this very gingerly way and I say, what happens if you just can't? What if the news is so bad that you just can't say these words? And like, I would sort of invite your listeners to like consider for a minute, what would you say to that 13-year-old boy? Right. And what my teacher said was, for a true believer, that is not a question. And that was just crushing. He crushed my spirit in that moment. Like I always joke. I always tell my wife, like, that was the day I became a floor tile. I just felt like if I could disappear into this floor, I would. And it also, for a long time, it made me very angry. It was sort of like, if that's what religion is, I'm out. But it also is a big part of what gave rise to the institution that I helped create, because I said to my colleagues when we started the Hadar Institute, right? You are never allowed to crush a person's life story ever in the name of God. When they bring their pain into the room, you listen, you honor them. That's everything, right? You don't crush people in the name of God. And you certainly don't crush people in the name of your own desperate need for certainty. You don't have that right. You do not have that right.
Shai, what would you tell your 12-year-old self now?
I think there is only one legitimate response. And I will say this and try not to sob. The only legitimate response in that moment should have been, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Right.
I'm so, so sorry. Right? What else is there to say? Right? And that is the holy answer. That is about being present with a child who's hurting. Right? Rabbinic tradition says, the highest level a person can achieve in this lifetime, godliness, is about being present with other people when they're suffering. Right? So you don't belittle a child who asks that question. You hold them. All he needed to say was, I'm sorry.